Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you're new here. So in today's video we are going to be editing this portrait. So I'm basically just going to be showing you how I edit my portraits in Photoshop. So this portrait, I've already done the skin retouching. I use frequency separation. So if you'd like to see me do a video on how I do skin retouching, just leave it down in the comment below. But there are plenty of videos out there on frequency separation, but if you'd like to see me do it, I can do a video in the future. So let's just get into this video. So the first thing we are going to do, we are going to click on filter and camera raw filter. So let's just wait for that to load. Here we go. So the first thing we are going to do, let's bring the shadows up a bit. So maybe we can bring it to about, let's say 34 is good. And then I want to go down to clarity, and I'm just going to add a little bit. You don't want to add a lot, otherwise it's going to look like that, which looks stupid. So let's just add a tiny bit. Maybe around, I think 5 is good. And then the next part we're going to go to, let's do highlights. Now the background is quite blown out, so I'm just going to bring those highlights all the way down. Okay, and I think that's good for this section. Let's go to the HSL. So HSL is obviously hue, saturation, and luminance. Let's start at hue. So let's start with the yellow. So I think I'm gonna, well, let me just show you. So if you play around with the different sides of the yellow, or whatever color it is, then you can just see the differences of what it looks like. So whenever you're editing a photo, just always play around with it. I think I'm gonna go for about -18. And then I'm gonna go do the greens next. So let's maybe, I think I might actually want to make this quite extreme. I think I'm gonna keep that at -100. And then the aquas, there's a little bit of aqua there, not really, but I'm just gonna mess with it anyway, it's fine. Okay, let's move on to the saturation next. So like I say, once again, just play around with everything and you can see what you like. So I'm going to start off with the greens. So I think I might bring the saturation up. Maybe at about 35 is good. And then I'm just going to bring this up a bit. It doesn't really make a difference, but that's fine. It's a bit of color. Then I think that is it for this part. I don't think I'll play with the yellows, otherwise it's just going to be too much. So I think that's good for now. Let's go to luminance. And then I'm going to start with the yellows. So I'm just going to, I think I'm going to make them a little bit brighter, not too much though, maybe like 2. And then let's go to the greens. I think the greens I'll make brighter as well. I think around 20, 21. That's good. Okay, now we're going to move on to the calibration. So I might just mess around with the greens a bit. So if you just mess around and bring it up and down, you can see the differences. I think I might bring it down because I want to create quite like a warm feeling. So I'm not going to do too much, maybe around 20. And then the saturation, I think I'll make about 10. Okay, then that is it for camera raw. So you're just going to click OK. Okay, once it's loaded, we're going to do an adjustment layer. So click on adjustment layer and then you're going to click on black and white. Okay, so you can mess around with the colors. I'm not going to mess around with too many of them, but before you do, click on tint, and then we are going to mess with the reds a bit. I think I'll bring this up quite a bit, maybe to about 120, I think. So let's make that 120. Okay, and then we're going to bring the yellows down a bit. Now this is going to look weird, but just trust me, I got it. So I'm going to bring it down quite a bit, maybe around 84. Okay, now we're not going to leave it like this. Obviously, we're going to just change the blending mode, and we're going to click on soft light, and it just creates like a nice sort of brownish kind of contrast, which I really like. But we're going to bring this down. We're obviously not going to leave it like that. So let's bring the opacity down to maybe 30, I think is nice. Okay, then moving on. We're going to add a curve. So click on adjustments and then go to curve. And I'm just going to mess around with this. Let me actually first bring this down over here, just so you can see everything that is going on. Okay, so I'm going to mess around with it. So let's start over here. I think I might just bring this up a little bit. Like I say, go up, down, see what you like. And yeah, that's really about it. So I think I might leave this more or less over here. And yeah, that's good. And then let's move on to the next one. Maybe let's just bring this down just a tad bit. And then top one, I think I might bring just a little bit down, just a tad bit, not too much. And then this one, I think I might, let's just mess around with this a little bit. I think around about there is good. And then the last one I might just bring up a little. Let's just see how they look. I actually quite like this sort of matte effect that it adds, so I'm going to just bring that up just a little bit. Okay, and that is perfect. Okay, so the next thing we are going to add is, and it's in the curves layer as well, just click the drop down and go to blues. So I just want to add a bit of blues. I think it might have a nice sort of effect on the photo, so just play around with it, see what you like. I'm just going to add a tad bit over there, and then let's see, maybe a little, just more or less there. And then let's see, I really like this blue kind of effect it adds. And then let's see over here, just a tiny bit. And then the last point, I like how it adds a little bit of the blue into their hair. So just more or less about there, I think will be good. Okay, then moving on to the next part. Let's actually just bring this up first, just so we can see what is happening at the bottom here. So we're going to add a gradient. So just click on the adjustment icon. Then click on gradient map. So if we just double click, never mind, not that one. There we go. Okay. So just click on the first block over here. I actually have the colors already, so I've chosen sort of like a red to blue kind of effect that I like. So you can just follow along and add in the same code if you want to use the same colors as I have. So for the red, you're just going to type in FF and then 4 zeros. Okay. Click OK. And then over on this side. The blue one is 002 88F. Okay, so it looks a bit weird, but we are going to fix it now. So just click OK, and then we're going to bring the opacity down. So we'll bring the opacity down quite low because we don't want it like crazy looking. So I think maybe about 5 is good. Let's leave it at 5. Moving on to the next part, I want to add a photo filter. So let's go to photo filter, and then we can go down. I think maybe a deep yellow would be nice. Yes, I like that. Okay, and I think you can change it, the opacity, if you want to. Let's just fix this density. I just want a little bit more. And then opacity will bring down to around about, I think 49 is good. Okay, so moving on to the next part, we are going to add an adjustment, and it's selective color. So let's go to neutrals. So you can just once again play around, see what you like. I'm not gonna do any science in this part. I think I will add magentas, but not a lot. So maybe like 1 or 2. And then let's go down and see what else we can add. Maybe a little bit like -4 on the yellows. And then blacks we can add, maybe, let's see how this looks. I think maybe just a little bit of black, just to add that added contrast. And then let's move on to the blacks next. Okay, let's see what we can do here. I actually quite like this added part. Let's not add too much, maybe just around 18. And then I think that's it for blacks. I don't want to add too much. Let's go to the yellows. Let's see. I think I'm going to just leave the yellows here. I don't want to do anything with that, otherwise it's going to be too much. Let's maybe add some magentas. So about 4 should be good. And then let's minus the yellows just a tad bit. So maybe -4. And then the blacks, let's see how that looks. Maybe about -9 or something. Yes, that's perfect, I think. And then let's move on to the whites. I quite like the whites, or messing around with the whites. Let's see how this looks. Okay, I quite like this. Let's maybe about -14 over there. And then yellows. Quite like the yellow added effect to the white, so maybe 45 is good. And then the blacks, maybe we can add about 10, just so it's not too in your face. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is we're gonna just make sure our top layer is selected, and we are going to hold shift and click on the bottom layer, and then click on the group icon, and then we're just going to rename this to color editing. Okay, and that is it, just so we have a bit of organization and we don't mix our layers up. Okay, so the next thing we are going to focus on is the eyes. So we just want to pop the eyes a bit out. just because they look a bit bland right now because of all those shadows and the color edits we did. So how we're going to do this is you're going to click on adjustment layer and you're going to click on curves. Now you're just going to go extreme with this. You're going to just bring this quite high. It's going to look a bit crazy, but it's fine, because the next step we are going to do is sort of ease it down a bit. You'll see why. So just hold Control I, make sure this layer is selected. So Control I, and this is going to turn black. So now you don't see the highlights anymore. So we want to add the highlight into the eyes only. So you want to zoom in quite a bit, and it doesn't matter if you start seeing pixels or if it starts getting a bit blurry. You just want to get in quite close. So just make sure your white is selected as your foreground, and we are going to use the brush. Okay, so let's get started. So make your brush quite small. I think maybe at about 2 is fine. And then you want your opacity to be quite high at 100, and then your flow can be at about 20. Okay, so let's get started. Now, well, while you're doing this, you don't want to just draw lines up and down and whatever. You want to sort of follow the curvature of the eye, because if you're going to do it up and down, it's not going to look right. So just make sure as you're going around, you're doing it according to the curvature of the eye. And also make sure you don't hit any of the black in the eye, because we need to edit that as well later. So I learned this from Piximperfect. There is a better way to do it, but this is sort of like the lazier version. So if you're like me and you like doing the lazier version, you know, go for it. But if you want it to be perfect, you can look for his video on how to edit eyes. But this I find is good enough. So I'm just going to do it my way. Okay, so I'm going to speed through this part of the video because I don't want to bore you, but I'm sure you can sort of get what I'm going on about. Okay, once you have done both eyes, you can fiddle with the curves as well. If you want to make it bright, a little bit darker, maybe you think it's like too much. So I'm just gonna maybe bring it up just a slight bit over there, and I think that is good. And you can see the before, after, how much better it looks. The next thing we are going to do is sort of the black parts of the eyes. So what you want to do is you want to add a new layer. Okay, then the next thing we are going to do is we're going to have black as our foreground, and I'm just going to take the paintbrush. You can bring the flow up to 100, and then maybe make this about 7. So let's just zoom in. And you're just going to go around sort of the black parts of a tad bigger, just so it fits sort of the black part of the eye. And you're just going to go around and around. And you can add a bit of black in over here. Then we're going to do the other eye. Just around and around. And a little bit of black in the middle. Now you can see how it stands out a little bit more. Let's just zoom in. You can see a slight adjustment, and it sort of just gives a bit of a sharpness to the eyes. And then the next thing we are going to do is sharpen the eyes. So make a new layer, and then you're going to press Alt Control Shift E. Now what this is going to do is it's going to bring all the layers underneath and bring it to this most recent layer we are working on. So that is what that does. So let's just check the photo out a little bit. Okay. Now what we're going to do is zoom into the eye and go to the sharpen tool. So we're just going to sharpen it a little bit. Just on the pupils. So look at the difference that makes. So you see it makes quite a big difference. Okay, once again, organization, make sure your top layer is selected. Hold control or hold shift, not control. And then we are going to group them and we can just name this one eyes. Okay, there we go. So let's go to the next part. So I'm thinking I might add some highlights just to make the photo a little bit more interesting. So there is a better way to do this, but I'm going to do it again once the lazy way and the quicker way. But there are videos out there that use, basically they use 50% gray. I don't know how to explain it, but there are videos out there on basically a better way to do highlights, but I'm just going to show you like a quick and easy way and not waste any time. So what you want to do is add a new layer, and once again Alt Control Shift E. Okay, then we're just going to name this layer highlight. Okay, so I'm just going to use my dodge and burn tool. So I'm going to use dodge for the highlights and burn for the shadows, but we'll get to the shadows later. So if you think about it, where to add shadows and highlights. Well, let's start with highlights. So if you've watched makeup videos on YouTube, that's generally a good way to kind of determine where to put highlights. So if you watch the makeup artists, they generally put on the cheeks, on the nose, and a bit on the forehead, and sometimes on the upper lip and a bit on the chin. That's a good strategy on how to see where to put highlights. You can see there is a little bit of a highlight there, and on the nose and stuff already. But if you don't really know, watch makeup tutorial videos and it will give you a really good idea. So my opacity or my exposure is at 2. You want to keep it really low, just so you can build the effect up. So I'm going to start on the cheek. And I'm also going to add a little bit under the eye just because it's a little bit dark. Just make this smaller, just a little bit over there. Okay, and I'm just going to add some over here, and once again a little under the eye, and then some on the forehead. Okay, I want to add some under the brow as well, just to bring a little bit more attention to the eyes. And then let's put some on the nose. There's sort of like a faint line there between like the shadow and the highlight. So you generally want to stick to that as a guideline. And then let's do some over here on the chin. And then we'll put some on her shoulder as well. And then let's just zoom out, and then we'll do like a before and after. So you see it just adds a bit more depth to the face, so I quite like that. And you can change the opacity lower or down if you think, or upper if you think you've done too much, but I think this is perfect, so I'm going to leave it at 100. Okay, so the next thing we are going to do is the shadows. So let's add a new layer. And then once again, Alt, Control, Shift E to bring the layers up. Okay, now we're just going to zoom in a little bit. And we are going to take the dodge tool now, or the burn tool, not the dodge tool. The dodge tool is the highlight. And generally a rule of thumb is to go in the hairline and the jaw. That's generally a good spot. I want to do that because it's just going to bring more attention to the center of the face where your eyes are, which is where you want the attention to be. So let's just add a little bit. My exposure is at 3, so once again not too high, just so you can build it up a bit. And then just check your before and after, just to see if you're happy with it. Okay, I'm gonna add some below over here as well. Okay, let's see how that looks. Okay, I am quite happy with that. Moving on to the next thing, I just want to add a bit of brightness to the photo. I think it has gotten a bit dark, so we can just go to brightness and contrast. And then just add a little bit of brightness, not too much, I think more or less about 80 is nice. And I think that's about it that I'm going to do. Otherwise, if I fiddle around more in Photoshop, I'm just going to ruin the photo. So I think this is the final product. So this is the before and this is the after. So I'm quite happy with how it came out. I think that before, you can see it is a little bit flat. And then once you add in the highlights and the color, it really can make a difference to your photo. So I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope I told you guys something new. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs like and subscribe to my channel. And also don't forget to hit the bell icon so you can be notified when my next video is up. Bye guys!